All right, welcome back to the Voice of the AI Revolution podcast. We are your hosts. He is Oliver Yarbrough.
Yes.
My name is Kirk Hunter, and Oliver, we're going to talk about something that affects every single American with a phone in their hand.
What could that be, Kirk?
Robocalls.
Oh, no!
Yes, this is the ethics and AI conversation, and literally anybody with a phone is getting a call, and it could have your prefix. You know, we're in Atlanta, so 404-678-770-470. We're looking at that and thinking, hey, somebody local's calling me, and then, hi, this is Becky.
And it's
Do
automated.
You have health insurance?
Would
you like health insurance?
Yet, don't hang up. This is very important. You have to listen to it. It's like, hold up a second. I don't have to listen to it. Why are you calling me? Why are you interrupting me?
Yeah, or it could be somebody who's in the Ukraine or Africa or something like that telling us that the IRS is getting ready to arrest us imminently if we don't buy iPhone gift cards and stuff like that as well. So when we talk about ethics and AI, we really want to get into this spoofing and robocall situation. Well, there's one thing that we learned before we even get into that. We just learned it today, as a matter of fact. If you tell these companies that you're a business line, they are supposed to take you off. So
supposed to take you off.
You know, we're not sure about the veracity of it, but that's just as good, I guess, as being like, hey, put me on your do not call list. Tell them it's a business line. Maybe they'll actually go ahead and click that do not call list button for you.
Maybe, or they'll just spoof a number and you won't even know where it's coming from, right?
Right, because essentially when it's just you and you want to deal with robocalls, you can always block a call after you've received the number. But what if that number is not spoofed anymore and it's an actual person trying to reach you?
Yeah, that's the challenge being in business. I mean, in your personal life, if you want to, I have a lot of friends and family who they don't accept any calls unless it's a number they recognize. But you can't necessarily do that in business, right?
You can't do that in business at all.
Yeah.
You never know what opportunity is going to be reaching out to you, especially if you have content out there. You have web content, you have voice content, and there's some sort of contact info that's coming to you. Somebody's going to pick up that phone and dial. I mean, we're still at a point where we need to have conversations with each other.
I mean, it's worth picking it up, even though it's painful getting a lot of these robocalls. It's worth it because if you let one business opportunity slip through your fingers because you didn't answer it, a lot of these business executives, they won't leave messages. They'll just keep it moving unless you just have something very unique. So, I mean, I know I've picked up off of a fluke and it's turned into some money. So I'm very hesitant to not pick up phone calls, even if I don't recognize it.
Right. So, and then you can also set up a barrier. You know, they have those companies like Ring Central and different things like that that'll actually act as a voice assistant for you. Somebody who will answer the phone and pretend that they are your secretary, even though they're in a call center somewhere. They do it for multiple companies, but it sounds very professional. Somebody calls in, they're getting a secretary, they're getting placed on hold, and then it's getting transferred to you as if you're in a virtual office.
So let's bring in AI into this conversation, okay? So robocalls have been going on way before AI was even thought about in a commercial sense, right? But now with this AI, once you combine robocalling with AI, meaning that it's the data analysis and it's the running through of the data and whatnot, and it's getting more and more fine-tuned, right? So the thing I noticed about voice AI and all is that it can actually, as it starts to mimic an actual human being's voice, I read something where it can actually start to mimic somebody you might know. And so what they do is they use the AI to basically go through your online history, figure out relationships you have with other people, find out who they are, find out if they have any YouTube channels out there or if there's any voice history on you on the web, which a lot of us do if we're marketers or business owners. We've spoken at some type of conference or we've had some type of podcast or something. So our voice is out there. So the AI can hear your voice, mimic it, and then call somebody in your voice. And so you think, hey, I'm speaking with Kirk right now, and just like Kirk does, right? And I think it's Kirk, and I'm having a conversation, and Kirk does something unusual, like ask me for $100,000,
Well, that's not necessarily unusual, is it? I did that last week.
Not that I have that cash, but okay. But you see what I'm saying, though? I mean, a sister, or maybe not somebody really close to you, but somebody just on the fringes of being close where it's believable. It might not be 100,000, but it might be a friend in desperate need who's stuck in some type of jail cell in Colombia somewhere, and they're like, wire me some money to get me out of this Medellin prison.
That's why I ask you for $100,000, because people who are in Colombian jail cells. You're typically not in one of those jail cells unless you got a lot of money. That's my hypothesis, anyway. Uh-huh. So what you're saying is that AI is going to be able to spoof voices and make these robocalls even more, make them actually believable. Because one of the things when we pick up the phone is we actually know this is a robocall. So if they get more sophisticated and it's a more conversational type of situation, then that's going to cause even more consternation amongst the masses.
It gets to a point where you get on the phone, because right now it's kind of obvious, right? It sounds like a recording, it sounds like something's fake, or it's kind of choppy, right? But you get to a point where it's truly conversational. It may not even be anybody you know, but it's just like if I cold called to someone, right? You're having a conversation, and you think you're speaking to a real human being. And it sounds far-fetched, but this is being done with the written word. I don't know if you remember, like a few years ago, that whole scandal where it was some kind of dating site or some kind of site like where people messed around online or something, and it came out after the fact that people were virtually cheating with, it was a fake person on the other end of who was texting them back and forth, and the men mostly didn't realize that they were conversing with a bot.
Yeah, so that's the double whammy. You've been stepping out, you got caught, so you got in trouble and had to deal with the ramifications. And then on top of that, you were getting catfished. So you getting that both ways.
So imagine if people were getting catfished off of texting and typing. Imagine what it's going to be like if they get a voice of somebody of whoever, and they think they're having a real conversation with, basically a voice robot, and it sounds real, and again, they get busted. How do you explain to your significant other that I just got caught cheating with a virtual robot? So from a business perspective, is there an ethical way to use? Okay, so moving away from a spoofing and a robocalls.
Well, actually, I have one more with the spoofing and the robocalls, because when you talk about ethical, they're actually using AI to combat this particular situation now.
Wow.
Yeah,
really?
I'm not sure if you're aware, but one of the ways that they're fighting robocalls is people who sign up for like a service, they can contribute their own voice. So what it does, the robocall comes in, it goes into this app that they use, Robocall Defender or whatever the case is.
Okay.
So once it gets to the actual human behind the AI and whoever's trying to sell it, then they're talking to, they think, somebody who's inside of a house, but it's like, oh, hey, I can't hear you, the baby's making noise, can you speak up? And they'll do that forever, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever the case is, and it's actual human voices because they've recorded different noises, and it keeps the robocaller on the phone for 40, 50 minutes, an hour, where they're wasting their time.
Wow.
They think they're talking to you, and they're just dealing with an app.
This just brings up something that I heard years ago, was that we're going to enter a world where you're going to have voice robots talking to other voice robots, and the humans aren't even going to be in the room.
Yeah.
And literally, you're going to have one voice robocaller calling an AI defender robot who's going to be basically doing like a face-off with them, trying to stop it from actually having a real human being even engage in the conversation. This is just mind-boggling. It really is.
That's right. So it is actually being used for good as well. So on the one end, robocalls are, the dearth of humanity. But on the other end, there are people who have figured out that there are ways to game the system and use AI to turn the tables.
For everybody's, one person's pain is another person's gain. So moving away from the voice spoofing and robocalls, is there an ethical way to approach voice calls from a business perspective, is there a way that I can, use this ethically to grow my business, to automate things a bit maybe? So just like you automate emails, is there a way maybe to possibly in the future or now possibly to automate sort of like in marketing, we've all heard of marketing and sales funnels. Can you envision a world where you have a voice funnel of sorts, where again, once we get these voices kind of good, and we're not talking about robocalls as much as we're talking about somebody who's maybe opted in somehow, maybe through an email letter. So say I have a membership or a list, folks who've opted in, and in the fine print, because we are marketers, right? So in the fine print of you signing up for that email list, there's fine print saying that you also opt into this voice service or whatnot. I guess I'm asking, is there an ethical way to approach this? Because obviously, there's a fine line between being a marketer and being, almost like sneaky, right? So I'm just posing a question.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to come down to what exactly is your message and what are you putting out there and how are you communicating it? Because I think voice can be used in a myriad of ways, especially if it's going to be something that's helpful, but it depends on are we calling people with our voice? Because if it is, regardless of if they opted in or not, as soon as you hear something that's automated or you say hello and then somebody just talks, typically that tells you, hey, this is a robocall type of situation. And that I'd be quick to hang up even if it was something that I recognize. And
that's where AI comes in and where this natural language comes in and all. I mean, at some point, it's going to be less of the robocallish kind of just automated, just start talking as soon as you pick up. And it's going to be more natural. And so that's, at some point, it's going to, especially if we get people to opt in to listen all. And if they know, for example, if they know that they're going to be talking to a robot. And some people are not opposed to talking to robots, especially if that robot is in your voice and that robot has information that you want. Because the reason I say this, and again, I'm of a slightly different generation, but looking at some of the other generations or even people in my generation, it's like when you think about it, I've been at the grocery store and I have seen this multiple times where the line to check yourself out is long, and the line where it's attended has nobody in it. And I just step over into the other line and I'm gone, and people are still in that automated checkout line. And, I asked someone, why is that? And there's a significant number of people who do not want to speak to a human being. They'd rather stand in a longer line just so they don't have to talk to someone else. So with that same mindset, there will be a decent number of people. Of course, I don't know if it's going to be huge or not, but it'll be enough people where it will make it worth their while, who will not want to really speak to anybody unless it's absolutely positively necessary. And that's where this type of solution could evolve into.
So I think when we think about that, especially from a business owner perspective, entrepreneur, high-performing individual, probably the thing that they need to start considering is what kind of conversations they want to have with their customers. And then you also have to figure out, is this a common conversation that I have? Maybe like a frequently asked questions type of situation where I can automate that and I can share that information with my customers. Is it something where it would be introductory? I'm introducing aspects of my business where I can get the message out to multiple people and just kind of spread it around that way. So when you're thinking about AI and you're thinking about ethics, think about the cleanest way that you can conversate with your customers, it sounds like.
Absolutely. So the other thing, I thought about touching upon as well was, do companies, from a broader, holistic, macro level, we know that businesses are in business to make money, to make a profit, right? From a business perspective, do they have an obligation, or should they have an obligation to take ethics, especially from an AI standpoint, to take ethical considerations into account? And the reason why I say this is because this all comes from the strategy of the organization. Because the individual or individuals who are programming the artificial intelligence algorithm, starting out at least, the bot or the algorithm is only as intelligent as the people who programmed it. Now, yes, once it's gotten enough information, it could theoretically then start to think on its own, and we know that that's true artificial intelligence. But it's still basing its decisions off of a database of sort, of learning, if you might call it that. Is there an ethical obligation for companies, organizations, for owners of this technology to do right by society and take this into account, or do they strictly focus on what's legal? What's legal? Or is this a legal conversation that we speak with the politicians about passing laws to regulate this?
Well, I can tell you that right now, and we've kind of discussed this before, this is an industry that is essentially the Wild Wild West because it's in its early infancy. So the answer is, you can be as ethical or as unethical as you'd like to be. Just remember that the reckoning is coming. When you're dealing with voice, and it's been proven that you were unethical, maybe you became a market leader, maybe you became a behemoth, a Goliath. So did Facebook, so did Google, so did Amazon, and we're in a stage right now where all of those companies are being looked at, and they're throwing around that big D word, deregulation.
Ooh.
They're talking about the big A word, antitrust.
Ooh.
And, if you get public sentiment going against you, where they are okay with your company being broken up, then that ethics is going to bite you at some point.
Ooh. Good points there, Kirk.
So always make sure that you're thinking ethically. Make sure you're thinking about the conversations that you want to have with your clients. And again, this is something that there's been a lot of groundwork, but there's still a lot of room for you to stake your claim. So make sure that you guys are keeping that in mind as you're figuring out how you can utilize AI for your business. And with that, that'll wrap up another episode. He is Oliver Yarbrough. I am Kirk Hunter, and you have been listening to the voice of the AI revolution.
Revolution.
Viva la revolution.